What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here at Kibbetech. As you can see, we got the Jeep all wrapped up outside and shined up, and we'll give you a little recap of everything we did to it. Impressive, huh, Bailey? Not amused. All right, back on the Jeep. We just fired it up for a couple seconds and got a little Exxon Valdez oil spill under there. The fitting on the oil cooler adapter on the top wasn't tight, so just got to tighten that and make sure it's not leaking oil from there. But other than that, no problems so far. And that oil block adapter was on there when it showed up, so should have checked it, but can't even really see where it's leaking from, but we'll get it sorted out here in the next couple minutes. Hey, do the windows work? We are checking the fluids again, cycling tranny and engine oil through the cooler, making sure we're not going to run it dry or anything, but plenty in there, just topping it off. Just added a fuel pressure gauge so we can set the fuel pressure because there's no way to read that. Got that stupid oil block all not leaking now.
Early the next morning.
All right, we got the Jeep up on the lift to finalize a bunch of things on it. Yesterday we fired it up for the first time. We didn't have the belt on, we didn't have the power steering return line done, and we didn't have any coolant in it. So we got all that all buttoned up today. Got all the coolant, all the air bled out of the coolant, all the radiator lines, because it's got 20 feet of lines from the radiator going to the back, and then power steering's all bled. We got the brake lines all hooked up. We're gonna bleed the brakes next, and then check all the fluids, and we're doing some skid plates up front. So we got our laser cut skid plate for the front. Cage is fitting that right now. Just gotta put the holes in it and bend the bottom. We got another skid plate for in between the cross members, and then we're gonna make another couple skid plates for under the trans and under the transfer case. So we're doing all that stuff right now. Those are kind of the last couple things that we need to do to this thing, and then the next step is go do some burnouts.
One pair of pants later.
All right, back here on the OBS, we got some sheet metal started up front. Just gonna start filling in the top, and then we're gonna start filling in the sides and the firewall area, and just kind of slowly work our way back. Once we get more into the middle, we'll probably just pull the cab back off, get all the sheet metal done, and then last thing to do, put the cab on, square the cab up where it needs to be, and then start tying the cab in final to the chassis. So yeah, all these panels, just doing them pretty straightforward. We're not going to do a lot of bead rolls and stuff on them. We'll probably do bead rolls on the panels out here that you would see more, but this one will end up getting a strip across here to tie the windshield frame in, so there's not real much room for bead rolls and designs up there. But yeah, I got that started up front. Nothing going on inside right now. Out back, we got the tube works rear end set where it needs to be at full bump. We added some plates here and here just to kind of box in where the bumps are. Yeah, sway bar tube is in. We did a little support here where the sway bar is, just to kind of support it with this other tube, keep this outside tube from flexing at all. And you see on the inside where the fuel cell would sit, we added a couple tabs in the corners just to help support the weight of the cell. Like you see on the other trucks, we do a big like sheet of aluminum and then we set the cell on that just to help that out a little bit. But this truck didn't have room for that, so just added some tabs to help support the weight. And then you see up here, just walking on this freshly mopped floor, see up here we got the spare tire section done. So this is to hold the tire from moving. And then we got our billet tie-down points tacked on here. So just need to final weld those guys. And then we added another support in the back and it bolts on right here because like I showed you before, this whole rear section unbolts. So this will unbolt with it. Just wanted something to support this rear tube, keep it from moving at all. But coming along pretty good. Just kind of knocking off all the little to-dos before we start getting the trailing arms and shock mounts done in the back. But moving on to the chrome truck over here. See Cade's putting the seats back in. We got the center console pretty much done. After we get the AC and all that stuff mounted up in here, we'll do probably a little trimming right here and maybe a couple filler panels. But the main structure of the center console is done. Just got to do, you know, shifter, handbrake, cup holders, battery switch, things like that. Getting the seat back in there right now so we can start mocking up the steering column, which is sitting back there in the back seat. That's just a stubby flange mount from Flaming River with a Sparco wheel. So we're gonna use that thing on here. And I'll probably have a push button start or something from run through the Motec. So no key or anything on that column. But yeah, that'll be the next step for this is to get the steering in there and then pedals established. And that's also a tilt column, so it's got a tilt in it and it's got a turn signal. So pretty cool little setup. All right, back here on the gray truck, you see we got all the top tubes in place. Nothing in here, just like the Tundra. But this one is pretty close dimensionally to the tube chassis truck, so I think we'll be able to just run all these tubes in there and not worry about any interference. But Evan did a great job getting this all together. You can see his welding is pretty ridiculous these days. So stoked that he got this thing all burned up. Next step for this, we'll probably get our mock-up motor in it with the ID Designs front plate and then start filling in the blanks right here. And then you saw, well, we'll show you, we got some other stuff coming suspension-wise, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's all we got so far on this thing since last time you saw it. Cool little parts update over here. Got another set of our welded 55-inch standard trailing arms all burned up. Evan welded these together over here on his bench and added a little something on these ones. So we'll probably start doing that on all the welded ones now. But yeah, just another cool set of trailing arms. Now that we got it all wiped down, I'm gonna pull it out. Oh, here, get my glasses for those wheels. Those wheels just got me right in the eyeballs. All right, so you remember when it showed up, it was pretty much already built and we just kind of went through and changed a lot of things and changed a lot more as we were going through it. But back here, the main structure of the cage is pretty much the same. We built a lid for this trunk that was already on it. We did our side panels. We got our sway bar on it, sway bar end links, re-tabbed out the rear end for our sway bar. Did stainless hard lines on the rear end, touched it up with some Steelit. We changed the exhaust because there was exhaust interference issue at full droop and at full compression. So we got our room there. This right here is a fuel vent. We added that. It just had a filter on top of the discriminator valve and that wasn't working. So when I drove it, just kind of dumped fuel all over the fuel cell and the exhaust. So that's no good. So we changed that. Radiator in the back. It had the 2 oil coolers there. We went for the radiator in the back and did the hard lines, 1.5-inch aluminum there. Remounted all the lights and antennas up top, just to kind of clean all that up. Changed all the hardware out, had coarse thread bolts in it, and so we just changed everything out for grade 8 fine thread. And then inside, We mounted the front seats. We made a panel for here around the shifter. That panel just didn't fit for some reason. It wasn't lining up, so we just made our own. Added a bunch of switches, finished all the wiring, got all the lights, fans working. Added a battery switch. It didn't have one in there, so we added a battery switch. Handbrake was already mounted, so we just finished plumbing the brakes from here back. Left all the front lines that were in it when it showed up. Yeah, just kind of cleaned it up. It was kind of dirty when it showed up, so. But the cage, I think, is a Genrite cage. He had these seats, so all this stuff was pretty much already there. We just kind of went through, cleaned everything up, cleaned up a bunch of the electrical. And then moving on to the front, which is where we did the majority of the work. As if you remember, we pretty much cut everything off the front and pretty much started over. So redid all the shock mounts, bump mounts, got the bump mount all tucked up here. So you see, pretty good up travel from where the ride height's at. Redid all the plumbing in the front. And we also mounted all the oil coolers. So like the engine oil cooler and transmission cooler are up here now. And I plumbed them all with our Earl's hose crimper and fittings. So it's all nice stainless braided on there now. It did have like hydraulic like tractor plumbing on it before, so we got rid of all that. It's kind of bulky and it doesn't really flex that much, so it would have been hard to reuse any of that stuff. Power steering cooler right here. Made some standoffs for the box. Just had some little like pieces of tube in there, so just kind of cleaned that up with that. Baja Designs light on the front bumper. Skid plate. And you can't really see it, but we skid plated from all the way from this cross member all the way to the back of the transfer case. So it's covered all the way back, so won't have any issues tangling that up on anything. Spider Tracks built the axles for us. We got those in there. Those boots are pretty massive, and there's not a lot of room in here for that Series 30 CV and boot. So we had to get tricky with like the hose clamps right there to keep the boots from sliding up and then contacting the shocks at full droop. So not the prettiest thing, but it serves its purpose. So yeah, made a new intake, remounted the power steering reservoir, did some panels on the front. As you can see, like I said, it's got our bumps in here, put our bump caps on it, rebuilt the whole engine cage and shock mounts, and also pretty much rewired this whole thing. There was a bunch of stuff there, but there was no fuses and no relays on anything. So like the rear fan wires were like almost melting themselves. So we went through and just fixed all the existing wiring to remedy those issues. There's just a big list of things that we did to this thing. And so yeah, that pretty much wraps it up front. We pretty much covered everything we did in all the other episodes. So if you want to see more of this thing and the build process, just go back and watch all the other videos that has this in it. But excited to have the owner fly out from North Dakota. Actually, he's driving out with the trailer, come pick this thing up. And I think he said he might go to Glamis or something and have some fun out here while he's out this way with it. But the one thing that always stuck out, and he kept reminding me, he said, I can't wait to see you go have some fun in it, race some heck and smoke the tires. So let's just go do that right now.